Are you ready to die on turn 2 in Standard? Ready for another card that everyone is already saying needs to be banned? Just when Standard was getting better, right? Better than it had ever been. I'm literally going down to Friday Night Magic tonight to play with my first paper Standard deck in forever. I'm literally going in again this weekend to play in my local game store's store championship. And now this! Duskmourn is giving us a card that not only enables turn 2 combo kills in Standard, but multiple ways to kill on turn 2 in Standard. What am I talking about? Layline of Resonance is Red's contribution to the Duskmourn cycle of Laylines. Like all Laylines, Resonance is 4 mana and can be put into play for free on turn 0 if it is in your opening hand. Its ability is simple. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell that targets only a single creature you control, copy that spell. You may choose new targets for the copy. So how does this kill on turn 2? Well, there's a few ways, but let's start with the simplest. Reveal Layline of Resonance from your opening hand and put it into play. On turn 1, play a mountain and cast Heartfire Hero. On turn 2, play another mountain, then cast Turn Inside Out. Another new card from Duskmourn that gives a creature +3/+0. Target your Heartfire Hero. Heartfire Hero triggers, gaining a +1/+1 counter, and Layline of Resonance triggers, copying your Turn Inside Out, and giving your hero another +3 to attack. Swing in for 8 damage. Then pass to your second main phase. Cast Burn Together, the adventure side of Callous Sellsword, targeting your Heartfire Hero and your opponent. Heartfire Hero deals damage equal to its power, which is 8, to your opponent. Then you sacrifice it, triggering Heartfire Hero's death trigger, dealing another 8 damage to your opponent. That's 24 damage on turn 2. There are other ways to deal lethal with the Leyline too. Cacophony Scamp provides redundancy to Heartfire Hero and can even sacrifice itself when it hits your opponent, meaning you can replace the Burn Together component of the combo with another pump spell like Monstrous Rage or a second Turn Inside Out. Standard is ruined forever. Or is it? Actually, not really. I'm not even that worried. Let's back away from the hyperbole for a moment and look at this objectively. Is this a powerful interaction? Yes, it is, but it's also a rather flimsy one. A single well-timed shock from your opponent can disrupt it. They just wait for your first pump spell to go on the stack, get copied by Layline, and then before any of them resolves, they pop your creature with a shock, or a cut down, or a torch the tower. You name it. And now, they've just 2-for-1'd you, which is a devastating outcome for a combo deck that requires as many components as yours does. And if you're on the draw, this becomes even more likely. Suddenly, there's a whole pile of removal spells your opponent could have up. And if they have them, they'll surely leave them up, since putting a Layline into play turn 0 basically turns your whole plan face up. Because of how many moving parts are required for your combo, the chances of having everything you need as early as turn 2 are not that high. It also means it's going to be difficult to rebuild to threaten a second combo if you face any interaction. That means a single removal spell from your opponent will ruin all your best laid plans of Mice and Men. Sorry, Bloomburrow is the most recent set, so of mice and bats, and lizards, and otters. That's not to say this combo won't be strong. It's not to say this card isn't a great new card for Standard. It's one of my top picks, but there are other great new cards, and I just don't think that this will be too strong for Standard to respond. I do think this combo will become the scourge of Arena Best of 1, but that just teaches you to spend your time playing Arena Best of 1. Go down to your local game store and check out Standard because it is better than it's ever been. And Duskmourn is actually bringing some awesome new cards to it, which I want to talk about here. I've put together a list of 5 other great cards for you to check out for Standard from Duskmourn. Are any of them going to break Standard forever? No, probably not. But they are really cool, so let's take a look. But first, did you know you're going to spend 30 years of your life asleep? That is huge, and it's critical that you get a good night's sleep. How do you get the best sleep experience? Well, it's with the best mattress. And And what is the best mattress? Well, it's Helix Sleep, sponsor of today's video. Real talk, sleep has always been an issue for me. For most of my adult life, I really struggled to sleep through the night or even get anything approaching 8 hours. But honestly, when I switched to Helix, it totally revolutionized the quality of my sleep. I'll never go back to sleeping on anything else. I've been sleeping on a real Helix mattress for years now. I can't imagine using anything else. The best part with Helix is that you don't have to go down to a mattress store and haggle with some salesperson who is desperate for a commission. You'll never get upsold on some overly complicated and overly expensive mattress that you don't even want. All it takes to get the best sleep of your life is to go to helixsleep.com, take their sleep quiz, and get paired with the perfect mattress to fit your needs. They'll even ship it right to your door, and it's super easy to get set up. And if you're in the US, you get free shipping. I already told you that I sleep on a Helix mattress and have done so for years, but you don't have to just take my word for it. Helix offers a 100-night sleep trial so that you can have a full 3 months. That's 3 months of sleeping on your new Helix so that you're absolutely sure you love it. And not only are Helix mattresses super affordable, they're even more affordable when you use my link via helixsleep.com/Tolarian. They've actually got a super sweet sale going on right now for Labor Day. If you get your mattress right now, you'll get 25% off. This is the perfect time to upgrade your sleep with Helix Sleep. And thank you, Helix, for sponsoring this video. Coming in at number 5, we have Kona, Rescue Bestie. Beastie. A legendary 4/3 beast survivor for 3 generic and a green mana. Kona has the new survival ability, which triggers at the beginning of your second main phase if Kona is tapped. In the case of Kona, its triggered ability puts a permanent card from your hand onto the battlefield. Currently in Standard, there are a lot of good permanents to put onto the battlefield. Most notably, well, how about Atraxa, Grand Unifier? And that's even on theme for the horrors of Duskmourn. Survival is simplest to trigger by attacking, but in Standard, there are plenty of other ways to trigger it without having to risk your creature in combat. And more importantly, trigger your survival ability right away, without having to wait for summoning sickness to wear off. One of the most notable ways to trigger survival easily is via a mechanic from Outlaws of Thunder Junction, the Saddle mechanic. Before turn 4, cast a Caustic Bronco or Ornery Tumblewag. Then jam your Kona, Rescue Bestie, on turn 4, use it to saddle up your mount, then in your second main phase, voila! Your best permanent in hand is now in play. Thanks, Bestie! Remember, the saddled creature doesn't have to attack for you to get your survival trigger off. Heck, the mount can even still have summoning sickness too, like in the late game when you want to cast both halves of this combo at once. All that matters is that you enter your second main phase with your Kona tapped. Saddling isn't the only easy method in Standard for triggering survival outside of combat either. Any vehicle will do the same thing for the mechanic as survival does. Sentinel Stalwart is a mana dork that requires an additional creature in play to tap in order to produce mana. Relic of Legends does the same thing, and even helps ramp you toward naturally casting Atraxa without Kona in play. Once Duskmourn hits the Standard meta, you better be prepared to kill any Konas you see on sight. Next up is another combo enabler, this time for a category of combo decks that has existed on the fringes of Standard playability for several sets now. The Tale of Tamamo, a 3-mana legendary saga enchantment with 4 chapters. The first 3 chapters are the same. Mill 2 cards. If 2 cards that share a type were milled this way, draw a card, and then repeat the process. The final chapter is a doozy. Exile any number of target instant, sorcery, and/or Tamamo Planeswalker cards from your graveyard. Copy them. You may cast any number of the copies. This card is a tremendously powerful enabler for graveyard combo strategies. At bare minimum, over the course of the next 3 turns, the Tale of Tamamo mills 6 cards and flashes you back a card or 2 from your yard. Remember, you do still have to pay for the spells you copy with its Chapter 4. As a baseline, this is an awesome card in decks that want to fill their yard or even just hit Delirium without much work. But it's not hard for the Tale of Tamamo to do more. Even just triggering that Go Again clause in its first 3 chapters once is a huge deal, increasing your millage by 33% and drawing you an additional card for your trouble. But that Go Again clause can also stack, meaning if you go again once, you might go again, and again. There's no built-in way for this redo clause to stop, making it technically possible for you to mill your entire deck and lose the game, but don't worry, that's not gonna happen. Well, it's probably not gonna happen. The deck that is most excited about this card is the Squirming Emergence combo deck, both because it wants to fill its yard with permanents to fuel its Fathomless Descent, and because Squirming Emergence itself is a highly flashbackable card off the 4th chapter of this saga. But the Dimir Reanimator deck built around Reenact the Crime and Breach the Multiverse might want it too. The 3rd chapter of this saga is perfectly timed to mill something sweet that Reenact can then copy, and the 4th mode, letting you flashback either Breach or Reenact, depending on the mana you have available, can help you battle through interaction in grindy matchups. With Reenact the Crime, you'll need a looter in play already in order to put some sweet crime in the yard to reenact. But given the density of looters in this deck, I don't expect that to be too difficult. Number 3 on this list is a card that does something that hasn't been done in a standard legal Magic card in over 15 years. So take a look at this, Screaming Nemesis. A 3-mana, 3/3 spirit with haste for 2 generic and a red mana. Whenever it's dealt damage, it deals that much damage to any other target. And a player dealt damage this way can't gain life for the rest of the game. Wow, talk about red deck wins.
Radical!
The last time a standard legal card turned off life gain for a player for the remainder of the game was Stigma Lasher all the way back in Eventide. And I would argue that Screaming Nemesis is significantly better than Stigma Lasher. First of all, it has haste, which is a borderline necessary keyword for most aggressive red creatures these days. Red creatures really have to deal damage right away in today's metagame. Secondly, Screaming Nemesis is significantly better against blockers. I mean, against any deck that relies on life gain to stabilize against you, Screaming Nemesis might as well say unblockable. If your opponents throw a creature in front of this guy, then the card has not only dealt them direct damage in retaliation, but has shut off one of the most tried and true methods opponents of mono red have to counteract your aggression. Something else to consider with Screaming Nemesis is how beautifully it combines with the card Shock. If you have a Shock in hand, instead of pointing it at your opponent's face, point it at your own Nemesis. Nemesis will take 2 damage, then trigger. Point that damage at your opponent's face, and not only have you not lost out on any of the original damage you would have dealt, you've also shut off their life gain in the process. This is a great way to manually shut off life gain against players who have chosen not to block your Nemesis's attack. It's worth noting that Screaming Nemesis can also throw damage at other stuff too. If it's blocked by a creature that outlives its 3 power, you can use the extra damage from its ability to finish off the creature. You can use it to kill another creature or burn down a planeswalker sitting in play. Screaming Nemesis is a real difference maker for the mono red deck. Your opponents better learn to win without the life gain from their Archangels of Wrath, Deep Cavern Bats, and Biza Bounding Spring. Otherwise, it'll be a long 3 years of Screaming Nemesis's standard legality. So what are my top 2 remaining new picks for Standard from Duskmourn? Well, coming in at number 2, we have Unstoppable Slasher, a 3-mana 2/3 with Death Touch and a pair of truly obnoxious abilities. First of all, whenever Unstoppable Slasher deals combat damage to a player, that player loses half their life total rounded up. So if your opponent is at 20 life and this hits them, they go down to 18 life and then drop all the way down to 9 life. A second hit puts them to 7, then down to 3. The final hit? Well, they're dead, Jim. That ability alone wouldn't cause this card to crack this list, but fortunately, or unfortunately, depending on which side of the table you're on, that ability isn't alone. See, the Slasher's second ability says if it dies without counters on it, return it to the battlefield with 2 stun counters. This is what's referred to in the winning games of Magic the Gathering business as inevitability. For 3 mana, this card will win the game if left unanswered. Or, more accurately, if not answered twice. You have to kill this thing once, then kill it again, while it still has stun counters on it. And even if you manage to do so, you still spent 2 cards to answer your opponent's 1 card. Of course, there's always the option of exile-based removal to kick the Slasher off the board permanently. A bargained Torch the Tower is one of the best ways to do this, currently legal in Standard. But not every deck in Standard can easily bargain a Torch the Tower. And against those decks, Unstoppable Slasher is coming for the throat. Thanks to Death Touch, Unstoppable Slasher is punishing for your opponents to block. And honestly, for all the fuss I made about this killing in 3 hits, even just getting hit by this once is plenty devastating. 11 damage from a single hit from a 3-drop is not easy to come back from, especially if you have to 2-for-1 yourself in order to finally get it off the board. If that wasn't impressive enough on its own, the Slasher also curves perfectly into Bloodletter of Alkazots to become an instant one-hit kill. First, the Slasher deals 4 damage, then your opponent loses 2 times half their life total. Now, I taught English and not math, but I'm pretty sure 2 times 1/2 your opponent's life total is... Hang on, let me just carry the 1, and oh yeah, it's your opponent's life total, no matter what that life total is. So ignoring turn 2 Leyline kills, what is the best new card for Standard from Duskmourn? Alright, I've saved the best for last. Overlord of the Hauntwoods, a terrifying 5-mana 6/5 green avatar horror enchantment creature with the Titan templating. Whenever it enters and attacks, create a tapped colorless land token named Everywhere that is every basic land type, meaning it taps for any color and single-handedly satisfies the requirements to achieve full domain for Leyline binding. Yes, in today's economy, 5 mana is a lot for a 6/5 that creates a land token. But fortunately, you don't have to pay 5 mana to put this thing in play. You see, Overlord of the Hauntwood has a new mechanic from Duskmourn, Impending, for 1 and double green. If you cast a creature for its impending cost, it enters with 4 time counters and isn't a creature until the last counter is removed. At the beginning of your end step, you remove a time counter from it. Overlord of the Hauntwoods feels like a card custom designed for the Domain ramp deck. Pre-rotation, Domain relied heavily on Topiary Stomper for turn 3 ramp and achieving a fast full domain. The comparisons between Stomper and Overlord of the Hauntwoods are striking. Both the Stomper and the Overlord's impending cost are 1 and double green. Both ramp you with a tapped land on turn 3. Neither can attack or block for the first few turns of the game. But by virtually every metric, Overlord of the Hauntwoods is a better card by quite a wide margin. The land that Overlord fetches is better, since it counts as every basic land type instead of just 1. When the creature is online, its body is bigger, and most importantly of all, Overlord of the Hauntwoods triggers up the beanstalk, even when cast for its impending cost. That last point cannot be overstated. We've already seen in Modern how powerful it is to trigger up the beanstalk off artificially reduced mana costs. In Standard, that was really only possible with Leyline binding. Now, we've got another very easy way to do the exact same thing. Actually, all 5 Overlords trigger up the beanstalk, meaning this interaction might be strong enough to bleed out of the Domain ramp deck and into an entirely separate Bean Overlord archetype. Even if that's the case, the synergies between Overlord of the Hauntwoods and Leyline binding, as well as its perfectly placed spot on the Domain ramp curve, make Overlord of the Hauntwoods stand out as the best in its class. I fully expect the play pattern of curving up the beanstalk on turn 2 into Overlord of the Hauntwoods on turn 3 to be one of the absolute best things to do in Standard for quite some time. As long as the Domain player doesn't just die on turn 2 to the Leyline combo, of course. I really hope that you are going down to Friday Night Magic once again, because Standard is the best it's ever been. Even if you're not going to check out the Store Championship, you might want to roll down and play in a Duskmourn draft and consider putting a budget Standard deck together. In fact, in addition to the cards covered here, there are tons of new options for Standard from Duskmourn, and now I want to hear from you. What are you most excited to build for in Standard from Duskmourn? Let me know in the comments below. And remember, there is no reason for you not to be getting a great night's sleep, and if you're not, it might be your mattress. If you're in the market for a new excellent mattress, check out Helix Sleep, sponsor of this video. Helix mattresses are the best around, and I've been sleeping on one for years now and would never go with anything else. Right now, Helix is offering you 25% off when you go via my code to helixsleep.com/Tolarian, and so this is the perfect time to upgrade your sleep with Helix Sleep. And thank you again, Helix, for sponsoring this video.
Ooh, next time on Shuffle Up and Play.
Today, I don't know what's going to happen today because Wubby wouldn't tell me.
We will be opening a sealed beta booster pack.
Sorry, I had to touch it. I just wanted to touch it.
Unsearched, so this could have a Lotus.
For the winner.
For me.
Slayer! Stronghold. Slay!
It's the boomer screaming slave for me.
Stop calling me a boomer.
Block your Ocelot pride.
Why are you tapping to block? Actually, can we see that again in slow motion?
By the way, Prof, you missed your Mana Crypt trigger.
By the way, go to hell. Lua, that was very dank of you.
Dank and slay the house down.
Now you sound
Yeah.
like a parent. You're aging.
I'm getting
You're
there.
getting older
Yeah,
and
I'm
more
getting there.
cringe. And not the good kind of cringe like Wubby.
What the hell? What a drive-by!